But for now, we're going to put that to bed and get to this Major League Soccer deal that has been refreshed kind of out of nowhere with a lot of major changes coming for MLS in addition to that. So just like the MLB deals, I'll run through the new terms of this MLS Apple deal. The big one, of course, is that they are scrapping the MLS season pass paywall. So no longer will fans of Major League Soccer need to purchase an Apple TV subscription and then also purchase the MLS season pass subscription for $100 a year. Now, any Apple TV subscriber will get access to the MLS games, and that's a huge win for the league right off the bat. You're just getting better exposure, better reach, etc. Another key part of this new deal is being shortened from 2033 as the previous end date to 2029. So they cut off about 4 seasons from their original deal. And in addition, MLS and Apple got rid of the 2027 opt-out for the contract. So originally, after 5 years, Apple could have opted out. Everyone expected them to do so, given how the deal had gone previously. Now, 2029 is the end, and that's what it is. MLS rights will be back on the market for the season following. So, Brendon, a lot of changes. We haven't even gotten into how Major League Soccer is completely shifting their calendar to align with the global soccer calendar. But to me, as a fan of soccer in the United States, I mean, this is like so long overdue. I felt like I just wasn't able to follow the league at all. And I'll be honest, like I was given season pass by the league. Like they just sent me a credential, and I still don't watch it because it's just like I'm never opening Apple TV.
Well, yeah, and that's the bigger issue for MLS, MLB, who has these Friday night games that are still going to be on Apple for the next few years, and now for Formula One is like, is this even a service that is a habitual use thing for people enough that it's going to make sense to put your games, your races, whatever there? I don't know the answer to that. I think that this gets you a lot closer to just common sense structure that it should have been all along. Like the season pass thing is so preposterous that when I first started at Awful Announcing and was covering this stuff for the first time and kind of just familiarizing myself with the intricacies, I had to have it, like I had to research it multiple times over to convince my brain to remember that was actually how it worked, because it's already a lot to get people to pay for something to watch anything. Like just that is the business model that all these companies are trying to do. And then they gave you one more layer of payment that you had to give them. Okay, I want to watch Ted Lasso. Okay, great. I'm paying for this. No, actually, you have to do this other thing on top of that. So getting rid of the season pass paywall is great. I'm not enough of a soccer guy to understand exactly what the switching of the calendar will mean and the shortening of the deal. But, reading the Sportico piece on this, that was the initial breaking news of the kind of the timing and the payment recalibration part of this, that you could tell that Apple's spin on it, the league's spin on it, I should say, was built around, going back to market sooner after the World Cup, which like, not really, it's still multiple years after the world. Might even be closer to the next World Cup by the time that happens.
Right.
But if you that clearly seems to be what the league is trying to get out there in terms of messaging, plus this rejiggering of the calendar. Like, to me, it just feels like they are feeling the burn a little bit of falling behind, and I think it's hard for me to do this from a distance because I live in a market that, for whatever godforsaken reason, the league has not been able to figure out how to get a team here. We're the 5th biggest city in the country. Tons of people play soccer. There are so many, Hispanic and Latino people that live here that love soccer, who watch freaking Liga MX constantly, and there's no MLS team. So I could rant about that all day, but it's hard for me to gauge the popularity of the sport or how it's gone up or down based upon this Apple deal or any of that. But I just think that this was supposed to be a golden opportunity for this sport in America. And it feels like, to me, this is MLS kind of signaling that, yeah, they got $50 million more dollars, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's a signal to me that they know that this is not working, and they need to take some more drastic steps to get it to where it's working better for them. Otherwise, they're really going to be behind the 8 ball.
I agree. And the thing that perplexed me the most about this deal is actually from the Apple side, right? So I think it's safe to say, and based on the little data that we've seen reported, the original deal was not working. MLS season pass subscriptions were in the low single-digit millions. A lot of those people just got it for free, like from T-Mobile, or just by being season ticket holders. So not a lot of people were actually buying this. So what was very confusing to me was Apple is actually paying more now that they're dropping the paywall. So you're losing what little revenue you had, but you're paying MLS more. And sure, like, you might be able to get better ad rates or whatever because more people will presumably watch the games. I think even that might be marginal. We did see they did say that Sunday Night Soccer, which was always in front of the paywall this season, actually did get substantially more viewers than their normal games. That obviously makes sense, but I don't think it's enough to justify a pay increase. And then the other thing is that because this deal was going so poorly for Apple, who's way overpaying, and for a product that's really not moving the needle whatsoever on subscriptions, for them to decide that they're actually going to see this through until 2029 rather than opt out after the 2027 season, which seemed to be like almost a sure thing.
They locked themselves into more years of the deal that we all agree is not working very well.
Yeah, I saw this spun in a few places, Puck in particularly, that like this is MLS, shortening the deal and getting out of a bad deal, earlier than they could have. But they could have also just kept the normal deal, or the first deal, and opted out 2 years before they're locked into now. So it's like, on some level, MLS is saying Apple, is saying maybe this new structure will work. Maybe the World Cup in 2026 brings a new life into the league. Maybe aligning the calendar will allow the league to improve its quality. It's going to be better television windows because you're avoiding football season. I mean, there are some positives here, but it really surprised me that MLS was willing to commit to 2 more seasons.
Yeah, it feels like neither side really has the leverage here, right? Like, and I think that kind of brings in like the Apple side of it in general. Like, this is a streaming service that is losing money, that has had to cut its content spend, and probably can't afford to just take the loss and end this deal and whatever that might have looked like, right? And so that's the point where maybe MLS was able to exercise a little bit of leverage on its side, where that's, I guess, a good thing. But the reason that they are maybe wanting to have a longer deal that, again, we all agree is not working, is because they probably also know that if they were to go back to market in 2027, they would not get as much money as they're going to get from Apple, even on a deal that is probably limiting their audience and damaging their overall fan base, right? So it's like it's like this very unhappy marriage where the two people are sleeping in opposite bedrooms and throwing shade at each other to the kids, but they both have to like sit at the dinner table every night and talk about their day at work because there's no other choice.
But yeah, see, I completely agree with you. The thing that just is so mind-boggling to me is like, I think you posted in our Slack channel that Apple has cut its content spend from like about $1 billion per year to $500 million, or at least that's the plan.
It was $5 billion to $4.5 billion.
Okay,
is what it is. Yeah,
sorry,
and
so
they lose about $1 billion. They lose about $1 billion total on the service the past couple of years, according to a report in March.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like the easiest way to cut your content spend would just be, hey, like, we're not going to pay Major League Soccer $250 million a year for a deal that's just clearly not working. But I guess they're gambling.
I think that just speaks to the value of sports overall, right? Where it's like, even if it's a problem deal for us, we'd still rather have exclusivity on American live soccer than another pluribus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's probably what they're thinking. And I want to, if I can throw the question I had sent you maybe to close here, like streamers in general, like if we look at Apple right now, they have Friday Night Baseball, which, take it or leave it, it probably is inconsequential to them. F1 at a probably above market rate. You can tell me if you agree with that. And then this deal that we're talking about with Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
Netflix barely has any sports. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
A little overpaid for F1.
I would say it's a slight overpay, but it's nothing egregious.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like originally, I think when the original reports came out about that deal, it seemed that F1 TV was still going to be a product in the United States. So F1 fans would have just been able to choose, like, do I want to get this through my Apple subscription, or do I just want to pay F1 directly? It seems like Apple was actually able to strong arm Formula One and kind of pull that back and say, hey, we actually want this exclusively for us. So I think that makes it a better deal for Apple, obviously. But
still a small roster, a small lineup. Yeah. Netflix hardly has anything. YouTube is this weird intermediate. It's hard to kind of label them as anything. They have a free NFL game. They have Sunday Ticket. They apparently wanted some NBA, but didn't ever really get that into it. They have this cable company that we've been talking about, that they kind of have access to sports without actually buying them. Point being, outside of Amazon, none of these streamers who have been hailed as the future of where all this is going have really put together consistent sports streaming packages where, you know, they are destinations. Every sports fan has to have them. There's a cohesive brand of what this company's sports streaming identity is. Peacock is kind of just this barnacle on NBC. It's not really its own thing. I want to hear from you. Do you think that that's because those companies don't want to spend, or because leagues are reticent to embrace those deals? Because I think the Apple MLS thing is like ground zero of this debate or dynamic that we're kind of looking at, where you could make a case either way. So do you think it's more that the league side is hesitant, or that the companies are hesitant to spend?
I think it's more the companies are hesitant to spend, because right now they're in a market with so many legacy media companies where sports rights are existential to their business. And so inherently, those companies are just going to bid more for sports than, than they probably want to. I think like a lot of these deals, if you broke it down, Fox, CBS, NBC, whoever is probably losing money on paper for a lot of their sports rights deals. It's kind of like the ancillary benefits that they're able to monetize. So I think the tech companies, the streamers, are just being patient, right? Like they just want to wait out and see these legacy companies kind of, either consolidate to the point where, all right, they're like a legitimate at scale competitor, or they just fizzle out and then they're able to come and scoop up the rights for a fairer market value. But I do think there's also some hesitancy on the league side as well, because you are inherently trading a bit of your reach for revenue if you're putting your content on a streaming service. So it is both, but I would say I would give the edge to, like, I think the tech companies are just being patient here.
I agree with you, and I think that the two examples that illustrate why that's still true, even in spite of how poorly this Apple MLS deal has gone, is what UFC and WWE did this year. Where UFC, there's a number. There's always a number, right? Like UFC was willing to sacrifice the visibility, and ESPN Plus is not some kind of ginormous service, but it had been working for them well. And they were willing to sacrifice that existing, much more mainstream Disney-powered entity for going to Paramount Plus, which is a lesser service, not something people are regularly using for sports, because the money was just so massive. And same with WWE, which is going to go exclusive to the ESPN app rather than, wherever it could have been, Netflix or something with a lot wider
both of those
reach.
Properties threw away the pay-per-view model in doing so. Like, I mean, obviously they're getting paid more money in the deals, but to not have that pay-per-view revenue coming in is a big decision to make.
Yeah. And so I think, to me, I think that's where it is. I just think from the streamer's side, what's fascinating to me, again, just to kind of close with the Apple part of it, is the fact that, like you said, they know they have to cut costs. The service is not successful in the way that they had hoped. And yet they still seem to value sports, right? Like they're not just cutting it completely. Same with Netflix. Like they won't go all in, but they're still active. They're still involved in every discussion. So yeah, maybe that's just the patience they want to gather. They want to negotiate. They kind of want to just have their finger on the pulse, but they're not out. They're just kind of these secondary little beasts. So I don't know. We're 5+ years into these companies being involved, and I still don't feel like I have a great gauge on what the actual value of sports really is to their business model.
Yeah.